What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a bit of an internal debate I've been having with myself. So a few months ago, I actually posted a video that was like top 7 of my personal favorite CRPGs, and I actually mentioned in that video I was likely to have to redo that, simply because there's so many great CRPGs coming out, and I've actually played several new ones this year, etc. But probably the biggest decision in terms of that kind of thinking is Divinity Original Sin 2 versus Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous. So if you follow my channel at all, it occurs to me that with the name of this, some new people might be clicking on this one. But if you follow my channel, you'll know that Divinity Original Sin 2 as well as Wrath of the Righteous are easily the two games I've covered the most by a mile. In fact, I've covered both of them in pretty painstaking detail, actually. And what I've found is that it has become very difficult for me to pick a clear winner because I like both of them for different things. And this has gotten to the point where I'm quite literally writing things down about it, and I figured why not share that struggle with the internet. Now, I'm actually in the midst of wrapping up my 100% on Wrath of the Righteous. That said, I'm still a little ways off. It'll probably be another week or two, unfortunately. That's why it's been on my mind. So I love both of these games. I really do. There's a few things I like about each one more than I like about the other one, which is honestly what's making it so difficult. For Divinity Original Sin 2, some of the main things I've nailed it down to are the fact that I like Divinity Original Sin 2's characters a lot more. For instance, all of your companions get the origin system that game used, so all of your companions get this really in-depth story that you can personally play out. And because of that, if you play as those characters, you actually get a bunch of dialogue specific to them. And one of them, Fane, it feels like the whole game was written around him, basically. That's how tied to the main story his story is. And that, combined with all of the supporting characters or even returning characters from previous games, all of them have just made such a strong impression on me that honestly I just like them more than most of the characters in Wrath of the Righteous. That's not to say Wrath of the Righteous doesn't have its memorable characters. For instance, I'm a very big fan of Ember, actually. But one of the other things, and this is more of a difference rather than a preference, when it comes to Original Sin 2, combat tends to be easier to get into, just period. It's a bit of a simpler system than Pathfinder's rather complicated system, or at least the implementation in Wrath of the Righteous, I should say, as the tabletop game is on 2E, but the game is using first E for the most part. However, the physical and magic armor system in Original Sin 2 is definitely a little clunky. It honestly bothers me a lot less than it bothers other people, but I do admit it's less than ideal. And another thing in Original Sin 2's favor is that I much prefer the big open maps, which might be a bit of a point of contention, but personally I really do enjoy the big maps, and exploring them I found that to be a lot of fun. While I certainly don't mind the honestly pretty classic CRPG thing where you travel from parts of the map across a bit of a world map and then it loads in like the area that you're actually exploring. That's fine. I don't have anything against it, but I do kind of prefer Original Sin 2's wide open areas. Then, in terms of Wrath of the Righteous, I love the Mythic Path stuff. That was an ambitious goal, and they, for the most part, they crushed it. There are a couple of the Mythic Paths that do feel like they got a bit less love than the rest of them. For instance, the Angel feels like it was the one designed around the main story, if that makes sense. You get so much context by playing through the Angel one that's very easy to miss while playing through other Mythic Paths. That said, even each individual Mythic Path tends to have some slight variance in its outcome, meaning that as an angel you can kind of lean towards justice and wrath, or like salvation and redemption. And some of the paths actually kind of feed into this and allow you to transition to a separate path later in the game, which kind of makes more narrative sense with these like little branching arcs you can engage in. And seriously, the Mythic Path system is honestly mind-blowing in its ambition. And then when it comes to combat, it's much deeper, and I do find that to be personally more engaging. Because while I do enjoy Original Sin 2's combat, there's maybe less than 10 builds that I think are genuinely incredibly useful. Whereas with Wrath of the Righteous, there's just so much more options. And in turn, that winds up making it easier to make a unique character, because something I do find happening in Original Sin 2 a lot is that you kind of get pigeonholed into a few different builds because there's only so many ways to build a character with what they've given you. And while, again, that does make it easier to jump into, I do personally find it a little less engaging in the long term. So there's kind of a pros and a con there. However, something that's also in Wrath of the Righteous' favor is that because you can make all of these different characters with different classes and stuff, even if some of it is definitely a bit redundant, it is a bit easier to make a unique character that you can really lean into the role-playing of. and I find it much easier to build a character that you can kind of actually roleplay and live out a certain fantasy in, which I think obviously has its own benefits, especially in this type of game. But without going on forever, basically, I just wanted to kind of make this video because, A, I was literally sitting here writing a list about it, but also, just to throw it out there to the internet, I'm genuinely struggling picking a genuine favorite here because there are things I like more about each individual one, and while I think that's fine in terms of having a stance, at some point I do plan on remaking that favorite CRPGs video, and I don't want to cop out and be like, oh, I like these two for different reasons. No, I genuinely feel like I need to pick one over the other for that video, and I've just kind of been going back and forth about it in my head quite a bit. There you go, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video, or, just hearing me ramble about something, I suppose. Regardless, if you liked it, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz, but regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. May you wander in wisdom, and have an amazing day.